These are the structural diversity. So the virus, virions, prions, unicellular organisms and multicellular complex organisms. But there is a unity among this diversity also, and that is the paradox of the nature. Unity is, which is less apparent than the structure, is transformation and utilization of energy and the reproduction. If you cannot utilize energy, or any organism cannot utilize energy, there will be no function. And if there will be no function, there will be no growth. If there will be no growth, there will be no reproduction. So these are the punchlines of the evolution of the life. The most significant concept developed in the study of living organisms, therefore, is that which provides explanation for myriad biological processes, joins every branch of life sciences from biodiversity, biochemistry, physiology to ecology and morphology, and therefore the diversity of the structure and the metabolism can be analyzed separately. But without a knowledge of evolution or by natural selection, it is not possible to understand the biological structure or the process. Now, how do we know that something is living? How do we know? So, define life. If I say that define life, it is very difficult to define life. What is life? A fruit which you eat is non-living. The moment it goes inside your body, when you eat it, it is a part of the body which is living. So that is how will you define? The apple is non-living outside. It goes inside and it helps in the growth of your body when it is a living system. So coral is alive. How do we know coral is alive? Though it is inanimate and grows in size, but it is formed by a colony of polyps. It looks like rock, but it is living. Do stalactites and stalagmites have life? Stalactites are the deposits of the calcium carbonate in the caves, and they also look like corals. But how do we know that they are living or dead? Mountains grow. Are they alive? So what is the definition of their life? Of life? As stalactites, I told you, they also grow, but they are formed by the natural physical phenomenon. How do we know that seeds are alive? If you see the seeds, for example, let's say bean seed or kidney bean seeds, how do you know that is alive? Unless you soak it, it grows, it germinates, and then you know that it is alive. So what are the characteristics of life? Number one is metabolism. Metabolism, capacity to do work. Second is non-random organization. Everything, all the cells, all the molecules, they are organized and they function in organization or in coordinates with each other. That is the second most important part of the characteristic of life. Third is growth. A child is born, it grows, and that is the sign of living. Third, next one is reproduction. There is a life cycle for each and every organism present or living. A child is born, it grows into adulthood, it gets begetted, it produces child again with the partner, and that is the reproduction. The character which is gone from parent to the child, some characters you must have seen, you copy or you have of your parents. Or if you grow rice or the paddy seeds or the maize seed, they will give rise to a plant of maize only, and they have almost or most of the characters the same as in the parents. So heredity is another important characteristic of the life, and capacity to respond to the environment. You all, I think you must be knowing that the elephant, we have only two species of elephants living now on the world. One is African elephant and the other one is the Asian elephant. They all have migrated from Siberia, and they used to have lots of hair on their body. Then they were known as woolly mammoths. Then they migrated to these Asian continent and African continent. In due course of time of hundreds of years or hundreds of millions of years, they shed off their hair in response to survive in the atmosphere they were living. And that is the capacity to respond to the environment. You must have seen the cactus in the desert. The cactus, they shed off their leaves or their stem is fleshy. If you cut the leaf, if you cut the stem or cut the fleshy body, you will find it is a mucilaginous. Mucilaginous, that means it's sticky. The stickiness of in the anatomy or in the interior cells, they have a sticky substance in their vacuole so that they can retain maximum amount of water. They have shed off their leaves so that transpiration can be reduced. So this is another example of the capacity to respond to the environment. And one of the most powerful ideas in the life sciences is that all the complex living organisms have evolved from relatively simple chemicals. If you see the structure of DNA, if you see the structure of protein, what they are made up of? They are made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus and sulfur. And all these inorganic elements or the chemicals, they have come together, they have binding with each other, and that has happened with the experimentation. They have formed organic molecules, and several organic molecules become an organism. What are these? If you see a galaxy, what is the nature of the human beings? We are nothing but a blob of protein in the galaxy. So, in order to understand the biological evolution, therefore, you have to understand that whatever evolution has occurred, it has occurred due to the sum of genetic changes which has happened in any individual or any species. So evolution therefore can be defined as that it is a change or descent with modifications, often with an increase in the variety of forms over a period of time. Like I have told you about the woolly mammoth, or the evolution of the cat or the tiger, the cycads, the eucalypts, the sequoiadendrons, whatever they are here, they have gone through change according to their climate where they are living in, and all these characters which I have told you must have happened there also. No designer in this case, no designer guides the biological evolution in nature. For example, if you want a certain kind of car to be running on a different kind of road, you design the mechanics of the car according to your need. But in the case of nature, there are no designer, no engineer. It has happened, or it takes place, and it's a very slow process, happens in hundreds of thousands of years, and no designer guides. It is between the nature, and we are part of the nature. So between the nature, between the two webs of the nature, if we can understand. So, though human can and do direct the course of evolution in some species. So, if we define that biological evolution is the change in the genetic characteristic of a population of organisms over time. And this is a simple picture of the earth. And in earth, you see, I have told you the molecules, various molecules, they got in to find a mitochondrion, which is a powerhouse of the cell. And so many species they have been found. If you see only one, the ecosystem, how many species, now question arises, how many species are there on earth? Do we know about all these species? It has been approximated that there are 3 million to 100 million species are there. Scientists used indirect methods to estimate species number. 1952, United States Department of Agriculture, they have said that if you see the insects, there are 10 million insect species. 1982, Terry Irwin, a scientist working in the Smithsonian Institute, US, he said arthropods are more than 30 million species. They are present on the earth based on the study of the tropical forest canopy. He created a smoke in the tropical canopy, and he found 163 beetle species on a single tree. If there are 50,000 trees or tree species in tropical forests, then imagine how many beetle species must be there. Some groups are well known and others are poorly studied, and this is because of inventorization. About 1.5 million known species are insects, and the remaining are all animal species. All the plants, approximately 2,000 and 50,000 species are known so far. This is the diagram or diagrammatic prediction or diagrammatic representation of the distribution of various. You can see that the major chunk is by the insects. There are many insects, and they have surpassed the rest of the organisms. Mechanism of evolution. What are the mechanisms? How it happens? So evolution, it happens in a population, and in a population has a gene pool, a genotype, and gene allele frequencies. And this is the definition. The gene pool of a population consists of all the alleles at all the genetic loci in all the individual of a population. Meaning that in any particular group, in a particular area, if there are say 100 individuals in a population, they all must be having, or they all should have the same kind of genome or the gene pool. The genetic variation, you must have seen a flock of birds. They're all black. If one has a speckle of white, then that is a variation. This is a simplified version to tell you what the variation is all about. And this variation must have caused because of a little change in one of the letters or at the genomic level. So this is the raw material of on which the evolution works, and that is I have told you, this is an example I'm giving here. It's on a starfish. You can see different color variation in the starfish. You must have gone to the market and you have seen different color of the eggplant, the brinjal. Sometimes it's white, sometimes it's purple, and the same way it is here. This is because of variation in one or perhaps a group of genes. Next is mutation, the source of genetic variation. Whatever changes has occurred, this change has occurred because of the mutation. Mutation caused little direct change in allele frequencies, but are the original source of all the evolutionary changes. For example, the speed with which HIV has overcome clinical treatments, it is due in part to its high rate of mutation. This is a beautiful particle of HIV which is creating havoc on the human population. Look at this. Here is a protein coat, and inside is the DNA. A little variation by the time the experts or the researchers, they find out a medicine, this particle mutates, and then whatever research has been done in 10 years goes waste. And this is at this rate this particle is changing. The next criterion for the evolution is non-random mating. Changing genotype frequency. Non-random mating means, in a simplified version, if I tell you, in human beings, the individual wants to marry or beget two of the same color, same skin, same height, maybe same eyes. That is there in the civilization, and that is the character of that population. In a tree, next example I am showing you here is a conifer. Conifer usually mates with the neighbor trees, but there might be cases where the pollen grain goes beyond the local individuals or the surrounding individuals to the far-flung areas. So everything is in a very organized way, and this organized non-random mating helps in the conservation, yet the change of the characters or the genome at the time of crossing over in meiosis. Gene flow next is exchanging genes between a population. I am describing it here. Gene flow can introduce new alleles into a population, thus providing new genetic variation. Variation, I have already told you before, it is caused by the mutation. Mutation means a change in a little base pair change may cause mutation. So gene flow makes a gene flow of populations more similar. Here is the example. Let's see, this duck population has AA, and the moment one of these white feathered duck goes into the population of dark feathers, after some time this will change the population, and the flow, their genes will change into the population, and later on it will establish itself, and then the two populations will be similar.